This is Friedrich, and my detective work cannot wait. I'm seeing many strings. I haven't a solution right now, and it won't be one only. If you see strings, are they being laid? Or is it the law of life that people behave that way? I can't say so. Today, or I do not want to say so, I need to have solid ground that others later won't say, 23rd we have, that others then those are not having any ground to accuse me of saying something wrong. I never said it. I never was a preacher who was saying those words. Why are those beside my real photograph? This was in the park of the Angela Schule. And this is not something to investigate in itself. It is a string. Why was I put there as a religious? Why was I put there as a religious? I'm a believer. But I'm not believing in the kind of preaching that does it too easy. Okay? My mother had quite a life. This is from a real passport photograph. And I really have the urgent need that this is taken seriously. There are strings others have in their surroundings as well. This is a real paper for the high school diploma newspaper, so-called. Then it was being asked to give those back to a teacher, and I said, yes, I'll put it in the papers, but then I took it out again. For some people, this is dishonesty, but for me it was the promise to put it away and then a correction. I had the feeling, why was this? Because of the Mr. Kohl signature? Because of that? Therefore, please help me. This is something, a string as well. I was standing there with my mother, and she was not speaking very loud. This is a kind of evidence. Now thinking as a detective, she was saying, a part of me is buried here. Was this young, very young lady, child, was she a good friend? Then you can lose a part. And then I was a little bit as a little child. No, not that little. It was at school time when it started. Then you are 6 years old, around that age. And then my mother said, maybe he is here somehow. The man in the glass house. And somehow she was in her, I was a boy, I was leaning on her shoulder, as I did on the car voyages, or in the car, in the automobile. And then I felt when my mother was having tensions, and she was somehow having a conflict. Therefore, my detecting is not only what you see, but what you feel and what you have in your nose. And this is for you important, that strings had been there, and you maybe, the listener worldwide, you maybe was not tricked, but given the false idea. I was around, and I was in groups, and that was at least a little bit in Sweden, very little in the Netherlands. It was on voyages, some more in safari trips, and not as usual. This is a string. Why was I invited? I did not pay anything. And then there was nothing afterward. I was a child and I was looking at things from the sensitive perspective as well. And I'm now coming more and more into the detecting mode. This is from children, but those children had helped adults because children see things others don't. This is not necessarily criminal. This parrot, it is a parrot, a papagay. The parrot was lost, and when I remember, if I remember it right, she was asking the boy Justus if he could help. Why did the children do it? Those were wanting to have it for sport. If you are here to listen to something I'm not, maybe I will become it one day or not. But right now it is detecting, and this is something, this I translated. And I did it at the time when I had my grandmother. I learned it for the outward appearance, a grandmother. This is Papa. He is against any strings. He was there at a holiday with other seniors, and he was not explaining much, but the sensitive perspective is a kind of communication I was having with those, my father, not he alone, but his ethnic specialists. I think, or I wanted to think it that way, those did it because of several reasons. I'd liked to have my father, and I thought I never met him. There were several who said, those are now in the shoes of my father, and those were not legally, but they took over a part. And somehow there are diplomats and merchants all over the world. No, my mother knew them, not all over the world, but we had special relationships. And they're not only the accountant perspective or the diplomats or the politician's perspective, but also the detecting nose, the sensitive was there. And I was with Indians who were not from India and not from America, but I call them that way. Those were people I communicated with as a boy without talking too much. I did not understand the language, but there is not only sign language, there's something. Those said, you are one of us. Not immediately. And I can't explain it. If it is good, it has a side effect. you are sensitive and this can be taken advantage of. And my mother said he was being criticized, and I had it myself. Do not be too sensitive. And therefore the counselors are there. You are not judging by feelings. Sometimes I thought, Papa, he was sometimes called Father. The others were not to know. This was complicated in itself. This was still a sorting out. Those are the emblems of the Western states of the Federal Republic of Germany. And this was taken as it is. There were those things. I hoped others had thought about the same. I learned that it is a thing to say, and then maybe another to be believed. If you say, the ground of German culture is this and that. There had been a small group in Breslau, who had been from different belief systems. Even in this Salvatore church and then the Luther church, it was different. My mother had to explain she was not in the evangelizing idea to stand before synagogues and molest people. She was not following that idea, but then we argued, and it was from the legal perspective. There you need feelings as well, because people are thinking and explaining things by feelings that go deep into culture. But it is a thing sometimes you're standing in between, and I felt it very much, not to complain, but to explain. What was it at the grave? A part of me, now understand, she was not allowed. It is herself not being buried. A part, then she did know. Or was it a girl, a good sister friend? And I had to leave it that way, but I want to find out. People must have known the man in the glass house. He must have known, and then I understand now, if you decide things, there are narrowing, bordering in arguments. Sometimes you cannot stand your ground, or you cannot do it because people are not there. And this is a thing. It is the country giving me one of the homes. I always said my heart has two chambers. Why am people not looking into the thing that I felt I could have been born in the United States? Why? I don't know. One time I filed it, I even complained. He said, you can do it, but then on your own. And now I'm understanding this is private, still private. But if that is in Hessen, and I forgot it, I came across because of researching and then having many pictures. And my memory in the pictorial realm might be good. That good, I cannot compare it with others. Maybe you have a good remembrance, a good pictorial memory as well. And this is not prepared. The basis of German culture in Breslau had been not two-sided, one side, with then two groups. And I do not want to, because I want to give the names too much. Or maybe not because I'm shy or I fear. I had it all the time. And then that people then change their behavior, not openly, but you feel it if you have the antennas. Then I one time was in southern, I think, America, and there was that much German culture, that much. Well, I thought this is then more than I can show. And if you say it, there is immediately the idea I do it to have a good standing, that I'm one of the few who say what is true. No, others think it isn't. If I could do it science way, the way of science, I would look into it and I would find out what is the tribe of Malachi. My mother said she was not even allowed to talk about it. Who are those ladies? Why are those on the page? Now I understand everything could have a string. Those were nice ladies, but I did not date them. I was rather in the other chamber of my heart. I was feeling those in America are free. Here some things, not only one thing, some things are there and people do not talk about it, but those are there. My papa, he has deserved very much honor. He worked. He was not in the same other thinking that was not talked about too much as my mother. But those had a common ground, and that was his belief. Papa would have been a preacher. If I could do something, I would support, but not politically. Maybe it is very good, and it should stay that way, that day-by-day politics is not discussed in evangelizing. My papa would have done so, and I myself as well, but I'm not into those easy solutions. I never had been. I wanted to argue the science way or the scientific way. And this is a thing, if you have Papa and my mother, this is Papa, and he had been younger. And I was now thinking about that what was there and what was not talked about. There was control needed, that the Federal Republic will stay peaceful, and then there were interests not on the political and not on the human field only. And I was with my mother and we learned, now I learned the most, but she said, I need you to explain me what the state of science is nowadays. And I did it aside the schooling. There was not the idea you need first a diploma. The day you can read, please. My mother, Mama, she said, you can do it yourself. And she was a pedagogical woman. And if she had buried something there, I think it wasn't. It was figure of speech. And Papa, he had problems because he looked that nice. He had a Danish friend, and I did not learn too much. But with the antennas, You understand, there was a lady, maybe his sister, who had in Denmark, one of the 3 houses. She said, if you come, do not climb over the wall, do not steal apples. Maybe those have no Danish dogs, the big ones. I was a child, and this was family friends. And I need the honor to be believed that I did not know about my ancestry. If you are there in groups, and you are like talented only, and the others have their recognition, you do it if you have it as your best choice, and that was not. I was arguing with others and understood those were not allowed to answer every question I had, and I am still sensitive. If someone is not allowed to say, he ought to say so. I'm not allowed to say it. And do not give me... I did the same. You can have an argument and then negotiate about the level you are communicating. Maybe you are allowed to disguise, but this is not what I myself would have negotiated about if I knew that my standing is from that what the others already had. Maybe this is because of my mother. The others must have known or not. A boy said, or a young man, he said, there must have been, or there still is something with you. This is on your side, but I'm not having a side. I'm not talking my way out of the German roots, but where is my home? Where is the castles? Where are the castles of the forefathers? I don't have a place. Silesia, that was the province my mother took refuge. My mother took refuge. And then those gave me wrong papers, wrong paperwork. This is not right. I was not 3 kilo and 670 grams. This must have been, and still is, wrong, and I hereby openly say so. Of course, I'm understanding the legal a little bit, not too much, but enough that I say, this is a thing. My father, he is being missed very much. He had protective methods by legal specialists as well. This is a thing I have from a book, and the book, my mother said, is quite right, but not everything, she said. The pictures are not. Some of them are not, you see. This lady was not explained more than nothing about her. It was only said, this is no good German, no good English. My thinking is mostly German, because I was raised here. But where's my home? I was glad my parents said, the ultimate home is not on this earth. But I was always defending myself against religion, and I hate that. I hate, H-A-T-E, to discuss religion. This is about science. What is the best? Religion gives you the idea there is something that is worked on by changing it on the basis, on the bias, so to speak, basics, ins and outs of the computer and the bias. The bias that was in the planning, I had it was enjoyment or not, but there were a group has been a group of people, young or not. I think those were a little bit older than me. And we were thinking about the architecture of the personal computer. Basics, ins and outs. The hardware components are regulated. It is administration. And it was without having much interest in technical things. And this, I tried to explain to my mother as well. And she wanted to know things I couldn't explain. How are the digits going to the screen? Bits and bytes. Bits, of course, are zeros and one. Bytes is a group of it, but how? And I tried to do so, and then I learned what I still am not understanding. My mother was learning till the end. And this was, it must have been the recipe with my father's family. His family was the leading family, and those had a heart because of the cultures that were already bonded because of historical reasons. This is not legal. It could have been as well, but those had contractors as well. And I don't have the papers. Those are burned in the war. Then I needed help, and people sent me home, and I couldn't look anyway. I got on their nerves. And I think my mother was with a man in the glass house in Hessen, and he was not wanting to help. But I was not there. I had the feeling, and then again a feeling. But this is not decisive. This is something where you have the nose to look into things. I was with police dogs. I had very little, but many contacts. And this went not only to security, it went to the law, to the court as well. I had been a so-called helping judge in German, not geschworener, not it is sometimes that the judge who had studied it, and then there are others, and there had been a town who could give it to me for a day. And I'm very glad I was having those chances to work with others. It was not needed to show myself. This had been from the start, but not in this part where I'm even now residing. And this is the disadvantage and the advantage. The advantage, you can stay here at this place, or I can do so, and I still can do so, and I have my quietness. But on the other side, I'm that narrowed in, I had to accept it. My father and my mother and Papa and Mama, those had to accept the difficulties and the powers. But the time had changed. There had been the United Nations, and that what was before. And I was there in the 70s or 80s, visiting on my parents' behalf a chief in Asia. And he was not talking much. It was rather on the sensitive level, on the antennas level. Not nerve system, it is something you know. If you understand a man, that language you don't understand, or who cannot speak anymore. He was very old, and it was said he was way over 100. And and what was being looked into. Sometimes I did things, and it was more than one. One day I was doing things, my mother said, later, maybe you understand, I did it for my mother, as people of old had done it, and I still need seniors. This will never stop. There are always people knowing more than me. And when I'm having this, why did my mother say, this is right, but not the pictures. And this edition, she said, she looked into, and she corrected things not right. This gives me the idea, very, very, very much, that people are doing things differently than my mother is seeing it. But if that is true, why are people not interested in it anymore? And then I come to the conclusion where I had been visiting, that was from time to time inside of this country, the Federal Republic as well. But people were not talking openly, but there was some expectations. It was in Hessen as well. And then I'm now having the problem, unwanted help. Unwanted help. And this is not good. Because of my looking, you look that way if you're not pleased. I'm not. Not in the administration that is practically in the say, having taken over from the Allied. The Allied had the government. I'm not glad there had been the war. I'm not glad there had been what there had been. It was not that it had to be, it was that it came out that way. And I met those from the German culture abroad, and those had a heart, and hopefully still have a heart, but the expectations should not be that people do what is right. I think it is nowadays that people do what is not being dragged in the open as being not right. More I can't say, but I have the suspicion, not only the suspicion, but that this should have been looked into, but my mother was running against walls, and then she was even called a wannabe. But it was, luckily, not in the open. She said to me, maybe very soon we are living in a house where you have then your own room. I shared it with the 3 siblings, now the 2. And my mother said, not much, but she explained, this is from those my mother adored. She was not saying, she was adoring this family and being, of course, remembering those deceased. But there was not much talk. But I felt those were... I was not feeling too much. There are still many graves because of the wars. But this was called an accident. And I was there as a boy, and the adults were arguing, and then even at night time, and I was sent to my room. And then I went to the hallway, and I tried to listen. This is not totally forbidden. It is forbidden, mostly. But this time, we cannot tell you. Maybe if you overhear something, Therefore, it must have been, nowadays, I explain it as being political. There were argues if this could be proved not to be an accident. This was strange as well. It was said you can be there where your mother had been, being your age. This does not make my mother the princess, not necessarily. She could have been a playmate. This princess was having friends from the early days on, but now I'm concluding this can't be that it is that easy to say my mother is not the original. This is too easy from the other side, and this is my detecting that gives me now the idea. This should be looked into earlier. This was given me, and there was not much talk. This is for protection. I now understand. Therefore, I'm not giving my parents and my mother any fault. This is not that I don't like the people. This is not that I don't like those siblings. But the secrets we had, and even Papa did not share too many. He was quiet, but not in his feeling. There was something. But I thought it was going the right way. And now I'm understanding that isn't. It's not going the right way. It's going that what is considered as being, if not dragged in the open, not giving any trouble. What is with the grave? What is with Papa? He was asked to be the owner of a castle. And then there was something political, and Papa was the one who was standing on the side of truth and truthfulness and having unknown problems because of it. Unknown problems. And sometimes it is considered that you are someone disturbing, not standing to your group, but it is a problem. There are that many groups. I was asked, and then they got on my nerves, to go to a group of religious nature. And I have respect for the Baptists and the Brethren, but I'm not in a group. The reasons are quite easy. It was, if my perception now gives me the right answer, a group that was being built, and then there an elder, and the elder was then being regarded as taking over. And this I don't do. I'm not going to a group, and I wouldn't do it to my group. And then the other said, oh, you can't build a group, and to that I said no. There was not even a bank account given me. It was once a bank account, and my mother said, don't do it. This is like with the allied groups, where she said, no, I don't do it. The Allied had a good work building up a secure country. I'm not questioning that. But not everything went right. I'm not going into that as well. I was not there. And Papa, he was not wanting to be in the Brücke. He said, I was complaining, I was only distributing care parcels. Care-Pakete. This is German for those packages that nourished the youth after World War II, and it was with the Rosin bombers in Berlin. very much respected that people from the outside thought about children. I'm now no child anymore, but think about those growing up. I was expected to do very much. I think it would have been preaching if Papa wanted to have it. Inside of the law, not to tread on the feet of others, but I do not want to be one who is representing those who are taking it too easy. If there is a conversion, then this is a change of heart, but what is with the other behaviorisms, and then the network, the family or not family, what is coming out of it? This is not that easy. I was arguing in the field of million years that brought about the diversified nature, and there was not enough time. The point I was arguing was the input of life. Afterward, as you know, in the breeding of dogs or in the breeding of other animals, you have diversified variety. And why are people making such a fuss about it? I had the chance to be in the field of DNA research, not as a science man, but because my mother and my papa, I don't know, it was all my mother who had the network on her telephone. And then, if this is voluntarily and private only, you accept it. If the network is then too old, somehow something else is taken over. But not what I understand now. It is not taking over your assets. I was never wanting to give that away. I heard it from others. This is my real, not a passport, from that school. That school was much better than the first, but raising questions. Why was this Abi newspaper, this Abi-Zeitung? Zeitung is newspaper, the newspaper word for Zeitung, for, yes. It was not a newspaper like a daily newspaper, it was the high school diploma journal. And it was that funny that I now understand. If I was looked at as a role model and then being in a group that was morally that questionable, this is a string. This was a string as well. I was asked if I wanted to change it, and I said, not with new injustices. This answer is Solomonic, like Solomon did it. If it is a new injustice, you cannot solve the problem of the land losses. But that does not mean no and not yes. It is nothing. It is then a matter to be looked into. And there was no looking into. And this is the time after, I think, Second World War. Yes, it is. This is new money. 40 Deutsche Mark, 1948. And my mother was somehow helping. She said this was the custom. If you could help, you helped. And then I learned later it was even forbidden to talk about it. But I learned it not from my mother. And this is not that I don't like him, it is that he is not looking at the things at all. Maybe he's not allowed, maybe not wanting it. Therefore, I have to be cautious because of that, what I understand as data protection. With the deceased, Papa is not there anymore, Mama is not there anymore, and my mother, the elder, is not there anymore. Those are still there, but you won't and this is a little bit a little chance with it. You won't recognize them. But this is important. There was a question that a lady was then having illegal behavior against her. And I was at the street, and there sat colleague from school, a student. He is nearly my age. Was you asked as well? Was you interrogated as well? Had you been interrogated yourself? No, I'm looking that way. This is artificial, of course. And I'm not doing it with any things you might expect. I'm doing it to prolong what my mothers did. Those were not, my papa maybe as well. He wasn't allowed to do things because of the political straining, narrowing, what was it? Contracts? Laws? And this is the thing you cannot look into. Many laws and regulations are openly available, but to understand why it's that strange reaction. Did people have expectations? I was not communicated. I did not know about the ancestry. There is something, people said, abroad, not in this part of the world. It was totally 100% hush. It was the custom not to talk about things if something politically and most likely it is a good custom. I learned some inside information, and then later that the DDR, the GRD, was much stricter. And my own idea is that there should be as much freedom as possible and only regulations as necessary. And things that concern you should be known to you, and that had not been. I don't know how much of it was being hushed against something, at least against my interests. This Mr. Helmut Schmidt, he was Chancellor, and he was giving me the idea. I was introduced to him being at his weekend home, and he said from time to time there's a child who later wants to be in politics as well. And he was not explaining too much. We were working at a boating, no, not too much, at a project. He was painting it, or first of it, sanding it. But it was only to learn a little bit about people, and he gave the idea much regulation from the outside. Of course, that was known, and in the papers it was communicated as well. What is now with the regulations of the Allied? Mr. Kohl, Mr. Genscher. Carstens, Dr. Carstens. With a PhD, of course, you have a doctor. And to address people is then, of course, important, but to use it, the doctor, in America it was much more relaxed. And there was not even supposed to understand on what position people were, because I was a child. I was more on the character level. And those have been sometimes the seekers for talents. The recruiters, no, not recruiting like in a business you do it, but going to schools and universities. And I think the idea had been that this should be not from one man, but from many. This is the field of media, as you see. This is international organizations. The standard of living by the raising of economic possibilities. This had been the Wirtschaftswunder, money again. And this is the population that is not having enough children. This is the distribution in boys and girls. The land, the distribution of land. This is where the money goes. Now the lands. It is a federal state with lands. Federal state, so to speak. In German, Bundesland. Rheinland-Pfalz, Bayern, a city, Bremen, Hamburg. Hessen. Why was my mother one time, not only one time, but one time expressing it? Here I can breathe. And I was shocked, why aren't we living in Hessen, if you say so? She was in a village, no, in a valley with me. She said, let us dream, have a dream. Suppose there are castles. What castle would you choose? It was a dream. It was not a contract. It is really a thing that happened. We were standing there, and then we had a stroll, a walk, and there maybe 3 kilometers. On the sideline there had been Burg after Burg, castle after castle. Castle could be a Schloss as well. I don't know, a Burg is a stronghold. Rheinland-Pfalz and what had that been? North Rhine-Westphalia. There had been a minister president. He's a kind of yes, minister president, the president who came at our home, to our home, and asked things I did not fully understand. It was weighing out. Saarland. This Denmark, Schleswig-Holstein, Berlin. And with Denmark, it was strange. There was this uncle. He was somehow one in the group of Fritz Johann, but it was not explained how it was legally. My mother said those had contracts, but I think it was not to change things, only to administer. And he was not allowed to go to Denmark. He was residing, I think, in Canada. And this was really on the sideline at that day of age, or at that time. My English isn't that good. but I talk like it comes to my mind. It is not prepared. It is more on the character level that you understand. I'm serious about it, but I'm reluctant to file complaints. I don't know. Is it by chance? Their strengths? Oh, this is Berlin. Berlin. The western part, had been from time to time coming at the doorstep, sometimes even in the little room of my mother, or at our living room, altogether 120 square meters, with 7 individuals. This is not having place for a bureau or an office. Later it was embarrassing. There came a lady, could well be a leading lady. I had not seen the passport of her. I was trained to be cautious. Not all people who look like individuals are those. Police, West Berlin police. One time I was not pleased. There was a talk, oh, then you do not need to be that cautious. But I was trained or raised, and I was never wanting to sleep around. I never did it. If it looks that way, it is not me. I want to know if that had been the idea, because I was falsely accused of being immoral. I wanted to really join a group of the Caritas. There had been the lady who was in the business of stamps, so-called Wohlfahrtsmarken. And she said, oh, who is that? Hessen. He was a little bit known, and then it was on the private, on the character level, and then it was not there. Maybe he had too much to do, or it was no interest anymore. If this is Hessen, where is it? No. No, it isn't. Or is it? There were several bridges, at least 2 of them, with restaurants in it. And I don't know, I want to know if it was counseling only, to learn something, to learn to counsel or to show your ability, or if it was more. This is Papa, and this is from a real passport, and this is a strange one. What is this P and what is this D? This is his name, and he looks strange because he was not feeling well. He's looking very strange. My all the time caring Papa. He was caring, but he was not that effective as wanted. He was a salesman, and he was one time complaining to his so-called brother, and he was a private detective. And he was looking into the possibility if my father, Papa, he was called father, but not legally, this was for my protection. My mother was called grandmother, and Mama, my mother, was called Mama. But Mama is not Mama. Mama is, I think, both mothers I have as mother. You cannot tell them apart. And this is not by my idea. This is a string. Why is that? Or why had that been a problem that Mama once was, with tears, she said people press her, and I said, I don't do it. I do not want to lose you. And my mother said, people want to put you to Mama's side. And my mother said, then we do it without telling it too openly. that people do not make any fuss about it, that it stays that way. I was breastfed by both. Both bathed me, and there was even a third lady. And of course it is embarrassing a little bit. Too much attention. What is that? Strange. Why is there only Paul and not Paul Gerhard? Well, strange. It is a string. And the only thing that is now like a fingerprint, because being aware that the warnings were maybe not too much, to be cautious that there is no foreplay. It was a warning because of that, what my parents had to go through after World War II. Papa was standing his ground for that what he considered righteousness, and Mama did so. And my old ma, of course, I think, she was having friends, soulmates, and this was the raising papa of my father, Papa. Therefore, I have more than one father, and not everyone is legal father, even if that is in this part of the world not. He was a role model in Breslau. I put there something on it, not to make it sided. There had been someone at the doorstep. He introduced himself as the grandson. He said what he was asking for counsel, what he ought to do, if he should put the ancestry background, it is not religious only, the ancestry background on it or not. And I thought that could be a mark, a trademark. But for others, this is a stumbling stone. Therefore, I put something on it, but I can take it off again. But if that is still a problem, maybe it is better to do it the scientific way, to show what had been. And there had not been the chance to do so. The strings show that those are that sophisticated that the DDR-style people had been there even before the walls went down. And the style does not mean communists. The style is to maneuver by having this, those are my hands. I'm working with two cameras. The style is to influence the surrounding, and I'm very careful not to accuse anyone, because I know about the problems that those then would defend. And this is a very sensitive country still nowadays, that I even come to the point that there is not provable, not to being proved. It should be not provable. This is not English, but now I try to use it as English. Not provable that there is discrimination. It is that latent, that there, that people could excuse it by my behavior. I see it over the years. Putting things there and then me not complaining, because there is nothing to complain. There is something next to my photograph, and I thought, oh, did those read the Bible themselves? I'm not using those words. Those are not my words. No. This is much too easy. But people, or the young boy, where is he? He was a painter, having painting as a hobby. This is a string as well. This is too high EMF, electromagnetic field. And this is a thing I look into, and then when asking, this is a string as well. I put that apart. I put it apart. And then I find a strange thing. Someone put that inside. This could be there to hinder the foliage to go in the water system. But I had to put it apart because it was not working anymore and it was flooding. And this could show what my mother suspected. People are trying to hinder even those working on a contract. And this I never understood. My mother was cautious, I'm cautious, otherwise you would accuse someone and this would be illegal. I'm not accusing that this is deliberate, I'm only saying it looks like strange. Having their things, with the house it was the same, and even the photograph had this finger too long, as he was trying to ridicule. The photographer was enlarging this, and I'm now coming to the point, is this Papa? This is me. I have my own remembrance. I was standing there, but Mama was working with girlfriends, her student friends from university. No, it was a pedagogical high school, Pädagogische Hochschule, but it is a kind of university. Jugendheim. It's Hessen, or is it an enclave of something in the south? There was a story about it as well, and it was historical, culture, diversity, and then one against the other. And this I did not understand. Why said my mother, she had it before, that the contractors did something to annoy her. Is it that the diversity of culture is still having its feuds? Even that is a string. Why had there been policemen from Hessen being officially in this part of the city, in the next party in Schinkel, and then at the street a policeman came in his uniform, and he said, if I'm feeling secure, if everything is all right. He was a nice policeman, and I said it to Mama, and Mama said, oh, he's still there. Oh, the painter. He painted that, and this is the boy. He was quite good a painter. Maybe he's having had work for Asumil as well, for this company I talked about yesterday. Was it transmittable to you? I need feedback that you are receiving it. If my detective thinking is right, I come to the point there could be a motive to do something out of a motive, or from a motive's drive out, or from a motive's drive, or because of that energy, having the motive, the ambition. This is not in my worldview. I'm not working against people to have the fun that those do not achieve. But my mother said, with neighboring countries, there had been that sporting ideas. Those wanted to be good, and my mother as well, and then those were sitting in France, for example, in caves, and being, as young girls, ordered to survive in the wilderness. There then one side, I think it was someone from Prussia against someone from another culture group in Europe, maybe England. And my mother said it was strange because those lived like cave women. After cave woman, two of them. And then there was a newspaper reporter reporting about it, and that was forbidden in Prussia. And this is, of course, a historical story if you have never heard about it. And I have not the proof that it is what I found on the internet, because it could have been the practice that other leading families, other leaders' families, and I think I can say that those of my parents were or have been leading families, but I'm still there, and I had been not for very long, but in that position as well. It is nowadays different than in the days of old. But I was a planner. I had been a planning entity, and it is possible I was not having the criticism like in this town, but what is needed is starting funds. My mother was always saying, this is my mother, the elder, the younger, Papa, this uncle, he is maybe the son of Schmidt. No, of the man who was filling in the character of he was not a general, he was something in the rank. And it was said, it was communicated, he was radioing home and asking for counsel, and this was privately given to hold the law, uphold the law, and even that in the times where people understood it is sliding down. It is sliding down. It is not as it should be. But it was the war, Stalingrad and so on. That wasn't good, but the mechanism was working, and you had to survive. And I'm not saying that he did well, and I'm not saying that he didn't. But I heard it. It is inside knowledge, and this could well have been his son. But there is a dispute, and she isn't the biological daughter, because my mother couldn't bear a child before me. Before the childbearing age, my mother had an operational, I don't know if it is an accident or if it had been an experiment, and then it went wrong. And she nearly had died. Fritz Johann was on the bicycle looking for an anesthetist, or something like a doctor who was having the medicine to get her out of her deep sleep again. And this is inside knowledge. Maybe it will help to identify my mother. Not to identify her as my mother, but to understand that this had been not private only, it was a matter of international state level understanding. But this is my private, and I'm understanding people are not following the whole law codex. That is the basic laws, not without being forced. The basic laws, and on it the Grundgesetz and of the time, not the changed Grundgesetz that has now loopholes. And I'm not pleased with that. If there had been the chance for me, as the child of both my mother and my mother the younger, my mother the elder, and the papa who was left in war, and I called him the grandfather, the large role model. Very large footprint he had. And this little home isn't that solid anymore. There's renovation I'd like to undergo and then have it as a sign that my mother was waiting, that I could receive what was not for her because of the difficult times. And for Mama, I think, I'm very cautious to say too much, Mama was not too much in the economics. She was rather having the children in her heart, and she was distributing things. My mother said this was not as wanted, and she stopped it. Something in my mother was too blue-eyed, and I had been as a child. The no understanding, I need other detectives. I need others, and I found the free will with the free will, not working for nothing detectives, because I had been there, not only in the United States. I found some in Australia, or those found me, and this was not a finding that was unique. There had been even tricks. I was never in the group of Mr. Assange. There was a trick being tried. Yes. And some thought it was, from his perspective, a group I was entering, and for me it was only acquaintance. And there had been others as well. I was invited, and people were expecting me to join that group. Therefore, I need your sober understanding that I had been very, very much in a not good interest. If people understand you're of value, and you don't, you think those are after your character. It is me that has to rely on the law-abiding of the people. And if then people expect from me more than truthfulness, like following them as the church members do the Pope, I don't. I don't. This is because of my lineage toward Else, Dorothy, Paul, Gerhard, and mostly Fritz Johann and Karl. Maybe Augusta Victoria, I don't know. I don't know if it is Augusta Victoria. If you want to remember me, this I was at school time, and this I was when I had trouble. I had trouble understanding what was going on. I'm stumbling across things, I'm finding evidence. I was in the process of finding evidence. And I'm still finding strings. And I'm reluctant to accuse someone, because I understand the defense is not what I want to have. I need law-abiding people who do it by their character. You cannot go to police and ask police to look into history. This should be the case, but it is not. It is not the case that the police in this part of the world, I'm even shy to call them German, because I see the quality demand of German character. I had it in South America. Those who were singers had been singers, and there had been that much character of German quality, even in the field of art. that I now, even now, or even more nowadays, I'm understanding it is the culture that is still alive, but in this part of the world there's the need to have a basis to build on. The basis, this is still me, because of things I did not know before. I did not know before that there is still a basis to build on, but not the basis of any church, and not the basis of any ideology, not the so-called Grundgesetz, the federal basic laws ideology that was more the thinking of GRD, DDR. This is commentary style to look at basic laws and then have the weighing out. Look at Papa. He's looking not that healthy. This is a real enlarged passport. You see the date? And is he something in the position of the vacant role model of culture, like a representative of a leading family? You cannot expect to have a leading family only, not only one. This is a federal state system. There should be a Prussian. Prussia was very large. But maybe the others inside of Prussia could have leading families as well. And this is now, I think, to understand. What I went through was looking and then having an offer to fill a position from foreign countries, even Asia, and that was much respected, but being a different system, this was very much respected. When I had been around 7 years old, I did not understand if it was me there as the son of a diplomat, be with the leading entity in Japan, or his nephew. And then there was respectful communication, and I could do it. If people were listening and I had the idea, it was relaxed. It was the want to solve a problem without being anti, without being narrowing the other in. It is the thing I like the most. I'm looking for scientists who do it the way you can have the calculation and then come to the same conclusion. Not everything can be scientifically approved. There is something. Even the Indians know. I remember I was in a family, and nowadays I understand it was too dangerous. I wouldn't do it with my child. But I like the idea that he wanted to adopt me. He couldn't, of course. It was dangerous. I was there on the path, at the son of the tribe's chief. It wasn't a large group, maybe 2 hands of people, or 3. And those went on a hunt. You understand? Those remembrances of my own past are there, but I'm not an Indian only. I'm not a natural man or boy. I had been in Brazil, but I had to learn, as my father could it, because he was raised that way, to look at the individual and then look to bond. without even understanding the language. And it is really true. I want to follow that line, but not only. And this was possible, had been possible. There had been those who were warning, those with the architecture in mind, and then it is enlarged. If you are a counselor and if you are an administrator, you have what you have. And if others have it in the pocket, therefore that is to be solved afterward. It is still working somehow. There had been what was not helped to solve. There was a leader, and he was talking about the other day, and it was too much private. Then I had to stay as a soldier, not being provocated, not being provocated. What does it to me if he says such a thing? But it was rather that I was too young. I wouldn't stay it that way. And this is because there are no detectives. No detectives of my father anymore. He was having a detective compartment in the whole of the company, in the whole unknown companies. And this was a network. And then when I was abroad, some asked, what is your father? Who are you? As a boy I was there, and those were all people who first communicated on the non-verbal level. And those identified me as the son of Karl and Fritz. And when I came home, and my mother, she first did not believe that she was not the one the others were interested the most. This was officially what was the plan, I think. And I was not sad. He is the grandfather, that was sure. But now I understand. Mama said Fati, and she felt obligated to the Grand Duke. Had she been there as a student, she promised him something. And this is not much to explain. It is being said, and you have as an underlining everything, the body language, and not only your feelings, but what you see. You say to others, it is in German, siebter Sinn, the seventh sense, but it isn't only that. You're not explaining too much. But being a detective, I was there when the Manhunter series was initiated. The well-known series, Manhunter, no, it was with a man in Canada and America. What is it? The man on the horse, and then two, I think, running away and giving a little bit time. And I was asked how to see the traces, and it is nothing than look for that against the light. Look for that what is different, and who can have done or made it different. Who have done it that way. And you could prove it. If anyone has my address, this was proof. This will be proof. I need it. There is the false rumor. I'm making up my things, and that is falsely being tried to be psychologized, treated by psychiatrists, and you know how dangerous that is. Being thrown there and then being forced to get medicine, this had been taking place and is something that is based on errors. If you're in this state to have holiday, to relax, this does not make me lunatic, does not make you lunatic. And this can be proved. The people ask me because those were renowned trace seekers, Spurensucher, in German, trace seekers or evidence seekers. And this is something that is a combination of every level you have, your spiritual, your soul area, and your ability to calculate on what you say. But it is not that it is unique with me. I saw it with others. But I learned that that it is good that I would later look for those, because sometimes those have less protection. But I do not want to be with the sensitive. I was once, and this had been a trick as well, being invited with the wonder children, wonder children. And this is, oh man, one specialist after the other. Therefore, even among them, I was like those. I was different, but I'm not that different. You won't see it. I'm now coming in the open, out of the necessity not to be thrown away. Please help with that. What is possible? And I'm not knowing why I am not pleased. This time it had been without why was that change? There had been not what is necessary for you to reach me. There you have links to the video channels, and you have the possibility to do that, what I was just communicating. It was my ambition to do it, not that people force me to do, but to look for recruiting possibilities. This, of course, is worldwide. Not necessarily like Ubique Terrarum, those were counselors for states also. This would then be the United Nations level. But it is with the methods of the interwoven networks. And the computer system is being built like it is in nature. And everything based on economics. Thank you very much. And I am not having any feedback, and I hope, I count on you that you give me a little bit feedback, but not, please do not have too much, not with too much expectations. There had been the offer, and I'm now understanding there was a string attached to it. It was blown out of proportion. You cannot be with 20 years a leader immediately. And this was never a group, because I had the warning of my mother. She said she sometimes felt like the forgotten child, and she said she was not allowed to say more than this journalist, this Kate Atkinson, wrote down, and this is then that tweaked. You won't look at it and find my mother. It is only with that little. Maybe it was political. I'm not interested in the political things, not too much. I have interest to build up something like a known economic system, and there you have the desire and the necessity to understand the legal system. And this is a thing you can do if you like. There you work on schooling, on historical buildings, on the ethical questions of the youth, if you like. To do it for your own children, maybe you do it for others as well. But it is totally new to me that there could well be something like adel, nobility or aristocratic nobility, through birth, possession, or achievements. It is a standing. And as we all know, the Standeswesen, the standing system, is not there anymore. But diplomats have something. And I'm not going into the idea that what I don't know, people gave it to me as an idea that was a string. And I'm looking at politics as being deceivers. Not necessarily every one of them. This is a Ständestaat. This is a system where there is the standing, like spiritual standing, the so-called clerical system. Even in cities there had been a nobility, and this gave you a different kind of law in every standing, and this in some regard is still there. You have a difference in the medical field, and I'm now understanding there was something, not only a little thing, many things, not given, of very much value. And I still want it, and I want to take it into place myself, not by others. Please help me with that as well, and I do it in remembrance to this boy as well. Joachim, you see, he was working for a scientist, and I was understanding there were being tricks played even in the science system in the Third Reich against those who were really of standing. Therefore, it is not a thing to understand that I have a group. He did not have a group. People said he was with others. He was at Peenemünde, and the real undergoing was in a bunker, somehow in a mining place. Therefore, there are tricks being played, and it is to his disadvantage, and people understood it is necessary to achieve the goals of the war. But please understand, this time it is not me being somehow a postage or a package to be negotiated about. It is first of all detective work. I need knowledge. How many things are there? And then there is the work to put them apart. It is not all in a package. He is now dead. His mother said he has died. And then came someone who said, I'm your son. And she said no. She did know he was having colleagues. And sometimes from World War II there came another colleague soldier. He came home and said, I'm now your son. This was a system only legal if it was contracted. And I never had the contracts, and my mother was not having. She said people tried to give her that idea. My mother, Elsie, was not having, and my mother, Dorothy, was not having, Papa was not having. But maybe others thought so. And this is now the problem. Another string and a great danger. Please understand. No known legal replacement, because a replacement could be individually. For one occasion. Then it is no replacement. But I asked my mothers, and no, but there were others who asked me, and I said, maybe. But that I did, not to have trouble. I later said very clear, I never replace my parents. Monday, 23rd December 24, Friedrich. Friedrich4.de is the domain. Thank you. No content though, but the domain is Friedrich 4, the digit 4, and DE for Federal Republic. Thank you very much. But my heart has two chambers, and when was I born is the first, and if then the United States, it is not automatically that there is something, because others are not to be calculated or are in the calculation. It is very important that I do it myself. There is no replacement. There had been for individual things maybe, and I had traveling fathers, but I never knew there is much. There's only that what is optional. This is something, and if others said, and they did so, you can't have it, I said, then I don't want it. Therefore it is conditioned, conditionally. Others said you can't have it. I as a child, and I never wanted to do something as a child without my mother. And this is an evidence. It is a little piece, and others are there as well. Please look into it. If you need something, do not come at the doorstep. Please write a registered mail. And then there is a correspondence to be built. And this is very, very sad and very strange, and it is at least embarrassing. No, it is embarrassing. It should be disembarrassed. It should be taken away. And this is not right. Papa is not in a free church. Papa is not evangelism. He is out of church as well. Why is that? Why is that there? This is something where those have official standing. I don't. This is the other Duchess. This is not me. This is not my family. This had been a singer I knew, and we wanted to build up something, but it did not work out. This is a man that is not someone related. Maybe through my mother, the stepfather, I don't know. But a stepfather is not allowed to do something. This is the basic law, but not to be interpreted by others. Not to be interpreted by others. This had been a string after a string, that the so-called religious interpret things. Don't do it. This is my translation of the slogan of the Breslau-Friends. Thank you very much.